Exar Kun, Ulic Qel-Droma, Naga Sadow. These are all names of old, titles and legends that have faded into ancient obscurity in the history of Star Wars. Before the coming of Darth Bane, even before the rise and fall and redemption of Revan, there were these heroes and villains of the Jedi and Sith. This video will cover the rise and fall of Naga Sadow, Ulic Qel-Droma, and Exar Kun, which coincide with the brief revival of the notorious Sith Empire. War will tear apart a growing republic, and the might of the Jedi Order will be tested like never before, all from one of its own. The saga takes place in a series of comics in the collection of Tales of the Jedi, all published in the 1990s. The first of these, and the beginning of our story, is the Golden Age of the Sith. Long ago, there was a schism within the Jedi Order. After a war spanning nearly 100 years, the Dark Jedi were driven away, exiled into the unknown areas of the galaxy. They came upon the people of the Sith and became revered as gods. With this civilization's resources and their powers in the Force, the Dark Jedi formed the Sith Empire. Presently, Jedi Odan-Ur, studier of the archives, is sent by his master Uru on a military mission in the Koros system. He is tasked with aiding the unification movement on the system's seventh moon, where a deadly battle rages. On Sinagar in the Koros system, a small family of supply runners prepare for another mission, commissioned by Arba the Hutt. Hawk and Timor Daragon live with their son Gav and daughter Jory, who want to be included on the run. However, the war makes it too dangerous, and they are left behind. Odan-Ur arrives on Sinagar and meets with Mehmet Nadil, an advisor to the Empress Teta. Teta's unification efforts on this final world have been stymied by the pirates of Kirik, and she believes a full-on assault may be the best option. Odan-Ur offers his skills of battle meditation, and is caught off guard when the assault is immediately ordered to commence. Nonetheless, he steels himself for battle, where through meditation he will bolster his allies' confidence and fear in his enemies. The battle goes in the Empress's favor, and the pirates launch a desperate final stand. However, in the midst of fire from both sides is the ship of Hawk and Timor. The ship is destroyed, and Odan-Ur feels great guilt at their deaths despite the Empress's victory. Gabby and Jord then inherit the ship Starbreaker 12 from Arba the Hutt and decide to explore the galaxy. They will join the cadre of hyperspace explorers charting new routes in the galaxy, working for the Navigators Guild. Sometime later, Gav and Jory chart a new random route, hoping to find fortune while avoiding a catastrophic encounter with a black hole. The route takes them to a dangerous star swarm cluster, which they barely navigate through. However, their ship will need repairs from Arba, and they are already low on funds. Arba holds their ship as collateral until the siblings can pay him back. Meanwhile, the wealthy merchant Sis Kahur plans to use a new route to transport supplies to the mining colony on Golud Minor. However, the drone ship he sends strays too close to the system's star, and the cargo is forced to be ejected. A furious Kahur demands to know who approved the risky route. Jory comes to terms with her and Gav's new poverty as she watches a procession. It celebrates Empress Teta's successful unification of the system, with the help of Jedi Knight Odan-Ur. Jory reflects on how she and Gav showed high potential in the Force, but opted instead to join the guild rather than train as Jedi. Gav, meanwhile, is cornered by Kahur's goons, for it was his and Jory's route that cost the merchant his cargo. Kahur has already murdered the guild worker who approved the route, and now sends assassins against Gav and Jory. The siblings are attacked and flee. They run into a dead end, but are saved by Odan-Ur and Mehmet Nadil. Odan-Ur kills one, and the other killer escapes. Gav and Jory then run away, and Gav proposes they steal back their ship and make one final desperate run. They fly away from security forces and make the jump. Meanwhile, on the remote world of Korriban, uncharted by the Old Republic, a funeral procession is held. The Sith Lord Ludo Kresh leads the ritual of the burial of Marka Ragnos, another Sith Lord who ruled for nearly 100 years. The planet, coincidentally, is also where Gav and Jory have randomly jumped to, and they now decide to fly to the surface to explore the unknown world. The ship of Naga Sadow then arrives at the ceremony, conspicuously late. Sadow was a political rival of Marka Ragnos, and now watches as slaves are sealed in the tomb of Ragnos as a sacrifice. Ludo Kresh commands him to leave, stating his rebellion and dark experiments threaten the Sith Empire. Naga Sadow asserts the title of Dark Lord of the Sith should pass to him, and that the Sith Empire has grown stagnant and complacent. He challenges Kresh, and they begin to fiercely duel. However, they are interrupted by the ghost of Marka Ragnos, who warns them the future of the Sith Empire now hangs in balance. In the Koro system, Odun awakes from a nightmare in which he saw a mysterious dark figure. At the same time, Empress Teta hears Arba's story of Gab and Jory. Odun approaches Teta and Mehmet Nadil and tells them he believes his dream may mean the exiled Dark Jedi from ages ago are alive. The Order had believed the exiles to be dead, but Teta now agrees to inform Coruscant of Odun vision when she travels to the planet in 3 days. Meanwhile, Gav and Jory witness the funeral procession and standoff between Naga Sadow and Kresh. They land and introduce themselves as emissaries from the Republic, but are immediately taken prisoner. Naga Sadow wishes to interrogate them, as he believes they may present an opportunity to expand the Sith Empire and renew its power. They return to Zyos, the seat of power of the Empire. At a council of prominent Sith Lords, Kresh advocates Gav and Jory be executed, believing them to be spies for the would-be invaders. Naga Sadow, however, passionately argues that they used the 2 captives to conquer hundreds of new worlds and expand their territory. The Sith people begin to split into 2 factions, for Naga Sadow or Ludo Kresh. 2 guards loyal to Sadow then break into Gav and Jory's ship and find their blasters. Naga Sadow himself is now in his stronghold on Kar Shian and learns of the blasters' discoveries. Hoping to use Gav and Jory as scapegoats, he readies his Masasi warriors for an assault on the Zyos fortress where they are being held. The guards are killed, and the siblings shuttled into Sadow's ship. Sith Lord Seamus then confronts Sadow, who shoots and kills him before planting the blasters at the scene. The other Sith Lords discover the blasters, and come to believe the prisoners were freed by the Republic. Seamus's body is also found, and Sadow plays dumb, acting forlorn and in despair. He then calls once more for the Sith to rally behind him as the true Dark Lord. Ludo Kresh refuses to acknowledge Naga Sadow's ascension and leaves with the rest of his faction. Naga Sadow is then formally crowned as Dark Lord of the Sith, and the Empire prepares for war with the Republic. Meanwhile, Empress Teta and the 2 Jedi arrive at Coruscant. Teta addresses the assembly and warns them of the Sith, but the politicians are reluctant to believe her, as the Sith have allegedly been extinct for centuries. On Kar Shian, Gav begins to tap into his force powers while in Naga Sadow's fortress, while Jory is held separately on Kar Delba. Naga Sadow sends his Masasi warriors to kill the guards of Ludo Kresh protecting Gav and Jory's ship and to steal it. Ludo Kresh finds Sadow's emblem at the scene of the crime and declares open battle on him. However, this has all gone according to Sadow's plan, for he anticipated the attack and deliberately separated Gav and Jory. Feigning concern, he rushes Jory to her recently freed ship and tells her to escape. He has placed a tracker on her ship, and knows she will inadvertently lead him to the heart of the Republic. Sadow then springs his trap, where he had hid his own fleet on the dark side of the moon. It falls upon Kresh's forces with ruthless efficiency, and the usurper slaves begin to rebel. Kresh retreats, and Naga Sadow at last has uncontested claim to the might of the Sith Empire. Jory Daragon jumps through hyperspace, arriving at her home of Cinegar, where she is immediately arrested for her and Gab's escapade. No one believes her claims of the return of the Sith Empire, and her ship is given over to the merchant Sis Kahur. Meanwhile, Naga Sadow's fortress of Kar Delba is repaired as the Dark Lord of the Sith works to convince Gab to join his side. Jedi Knight Odan is visited by his former master Uru, who has learned of the rumors surrounding the Sith. Empress Teta continues to build formidable defenses for her system, confident they will not be taken off guard by any attackers. And as for Naga Sadow, a transmission from Kresh's flagship arrives, warning the other Sith Lords of Sadow's duplicity. Sadow tricks Gav into firing a beam that destroys Ludo Kresh's ship and seemingly killing his rival, and begins to summon the fleets for an attack on the Republic. Meanwhile, Jory's trial goes poorly, and her pleas fall on deaf ears as she is sentenced to be transferred to the colony world of Veronica. Gab and Naga Sadow visit Sith Lord Shar Dakan, with the young man still hoping to find Jory and return home to the Republic. Sadow's gathered force is tremendous, and he commands it all at its heart in his meditation sphere. On Veronica, Jory manages to steal an ore shuttle and fly all the way back to Sinagar. She parachutes onto Teta's palace and breaks into the throne room. Teta hears Jory's claims and begins to prepare her defenses, though she is skeptical the Republic as a whole will be galvanized into action anytime soon. Sadow's forces reach the staging point of Kar Xian, and Gab is given command of Sadow's flagship. The fleet launches and arrives at Sinagar, where coincidentally Kahur is taking Jory's ship out for a joyride. The Starbreaker 12 is shot on sight and destroyed, and Kahur is killed. Meanwhile, Jedi Mehmet Nadil travels to Coruscant, where he warns the Jedi of the Sith Empire's impending attack. Then, another fleet of Naga Sadow arrives at Coruscant and begins landing ground troops. It is a massive, multi-pronged attack by the Sith. Empress Teta frees the prisoners on the colony worlds to aid in the defense of the system, and Jory is given a lightsaber by Odan. Odan and Uru then travel to the pirate world of Kirik to help with its defense. Gab then decides to fly down to the surface of Sinagar to find Jory, sensing her being a pair of amulets the siblings have. He witnesses the destruction of Sinagar, feeling remorse for his actions. He encounters Arba, but then the simple-minded Sith escorts with him attack and kill the Hutt. Jory then arrives, and sees Gab standing over Arba's body. Furious, she attacks Gab with her lightsaber and kills the escorts. A speechless Gab then flees, taking off and flying away. Jory pursues him, noting he almost seems to be wanting to be followed. She tracks him to Primus Golod, where Naga Sadow's meditation sphere hovers. Gab, seeking retribution, then opens fire on the sphere. Across the galaxy, Sith warriors seemingly vanish into thin air, and are revealed to be an illusion of Sadow to project a greater force than he actually has. The Sith attack loses momentum, and Naga Sadow becomes stranded in his sphere. He sends a message to Gab, asking to talk in person. However, Gab enters the sphere to find it abandoned, for Sadow has escaped and resumed his meditations to rally his troops. On Kirik, Odan and Uru are driven back, and Uru sacrifices himself to buy the defenders time until reinforcements arrive. The Sith retreat upon the coming of Teta and Veronica's fleets. The defenders then fly to Primus Golod, where Gab tries to convince them to attack the undefended heart of the Sith Empire. Then, Naga Sadow leads an armada of the remnants of his fleet and ambushes them. He fires into the sun, triggering deadly solar flares. The star loses stability and detonates, destroying the sphere and killing Gab. At the last moment, however, he sent Jory coordinates to the Sith homeworlds. Naga Sadow manages to make it back to his home system, only to find that Ludo Kresh faked his death and has now claimed the title of Dark Lord of the Sith for himself. The opposing factions battle each other, but Kresh is killed at last when Sadow orders one of his ships to fly directly into his flagship. Things then go from bad to worse, as the fleet of Teta shows up and opens fire on Sadow. Sadow flees to the Denari Nova and triggers another massive explosion. The Republic forces believe him to be dead and withdraw from the system. The savage conflict that will come to be known as the Great Hyperspace War has ended. The Sith invasions across the galaxy are repelled, and Odan begins to research the scuttled Sith ships. He decides to build a learning center for the Jedi on Ossus, where he was trained by Uru. Jory is pardoned by Teta and begins to rebuild Arba's repair dock. The Koro system is then renamed to the Empress Teta system. And elsewhere, it turns out Naga Sadow has survived. With a scant few Masasi followers remaining to his name, he retreats to Yavin 4, where he begins to rebuild his empire. On the planet of Arcania, Jedi Master Arca trains Jedi Knights in the art of war and combat. His fiercest protege is one Ulic Qel-Droma, who fights with a boldness bordering on sheer arrogance. In the wake of the Great Hyperspace War, the Republic has continued to grow and add new worlds into its folds. One such planet is Onderon, and Master Arca in particular is concerned with its moon Dxun. The moon is unique in that its orbit brings it into the atmosphere of Onderon itself. A species of monstrous winged beasts evolved long ago to travel to Onderon when this happened, and came upon the primitive tribes of the natives. The people of Onderon built a massive walled city that went several miles underground, with the lands outside deemed primitive and dangerous. Outcasts and criminals were exiled into that wilderness, and over time those outsiders adapted to control the winged creatures and formed their own civilization. Now, the world has fallen into a state of permanent war between these two societies. Master Arca has been given charge of protecting Onderon, and he presently decides to send Ulic Qel-Droma, his brother Kay, and the Twi'lek Tot Donita to the planet, with orders to first find peace and only fight as a last resort. The three companions reach the main city, called Aziz. They are hounded by beast riders along the way, but manage to land safely. Queen Amanda welcomes them, but Tot is immediately detained, for the Onderon natives are highly distrustful of alien species. The Jedi meet Amanda and her daughter Gallia, but news soon arrives that some beast riders have broken the defenses and are approaching the royal citadel. Ulic and his friends are immediately thrust into action, stepping up in defense of the queen. Several beast riders are killed, but others break away for the throne room. The attackers burst in, and Amanda tries to invoke the power of Freedon Nad, but is too slow. Her daughter Gallia is abducted, and the Jedi arrive too late to save her. A furious queen demands Ulic Qel-Droma rescue her heir. Kay and Tot believe they should wait for the counsel of Master Arca, as they sense a foreboding darkness about the people of Onderon. Ulic, however, is headstrong and quickly tells Amanda they will free her daughter. They fly outside Aziz into the wilderness, but Ulic's ship is quickly shot down by Beast Rider artillery. The Jedi land somewhere in the lands of Modon Kira. Several native beasts approach them, but Tot is able to speak to them, and they are taken to a temple. It turns out Gallia is marrying Oron Kira, son of the reigning Beast Lord. It is revealed her kidnapping was done at her behest, for she loves Oron, a fierce and noble warrior. His father, Modon, rules accompanied by his own mute father. It is revealed that long ago, the Dark Jedi Freedon Nad came to power in Onderon and ruled with the fist of the Sith. The outcasts sent into the wilderness were actually those who opposed Nad's rule and challenged the dark side. Ulic remembers Arca's command to maintain peace, and proposes they reveal Gallia's marriage with Oron to Amanda in hopes the war will finally end. The Beast Riders reluctantly agree, but as a contingency prepare the full might of the Beast Riders readies for battle as the Jedi return to Aziz with Gallia. Queen Amanda, however, refuses to hear deals of peace, and calls once more upon the spirit of Freedon Nad. For Amanda has studied the teachings of the Sith, and now waves of darkness buffet the Jedi and Gallia. Kay becomes stuck in the throne room, and Ulic Qel-Droma acknowledges the mission of peace has failed. The Jedi must now fight on the side of the Beast Riders. The attack begins as Kay Qel-Droma confronts Amanda. The guards intervene, and Kay is shot in the hand and loses an arm. Amanda withdraws to the mausoleum of Freedon Nad, and fully gives in to the dark side. It strengthens her troops, and the Beast Riders' attack stalls. Ulic then finds Kay and rescues him as a mysterious ship flies over the battle. It seems to carry a Jedi experienced in battle meditation, and the fight once more swings to the favor of the Beast Riders. The Jedi is Master Arca, who expresses his disappointment in his apprentices for their handling of the crisis. He then leads them and Gallia to the sarcophagus of Freedom Nad, where they find Queen Amanda. The dark powers there desert her, seemingly killing her. Arca claims the shadow of Freedom Nad has been lifted from Onderon, and that Gallia and her people will now be freed from the influence of the Sith. The age-old war is at last ended, with the tribes and people of Aziz united. Ulic, Tot, and Kay, who now has a prosthetic arm, will remain on Onderon. However, Gallia's own father remains missing, and cultists of Freedom Nad still reside in the city. Jedi Knight Ander Sunrider sets out to meet with Master Thon, overseer of the Stennis system. He is accompanied by his wife Nomi and their young daughter Vima, and is given special Adagan crystals for constructing lightsabers. Ander hopes Vima will be taught by Thon to become a Jedi, and while Nomi is strong in the Force as well, she claims she is too timid to begin her training. They jump through hyperspace and land at a seedy terminal. Some criminals there learn of Ander's crystals and begin to plot to steal them. They threaten Ander's droid, and when the Jedi leaps up to defend it, he is bitten by their poisonous lizard. Ander dies, and Nomi and Vima must now defend themselves. The Force Ghost of Ander appears and urges Nomi to pick up his lightsaber and to find Master Thon. The Force begins to flow through her as she ignites it, and Nomi's Sunrider cuts down one of the thugs as the rest flee. Left with no other option, they jump into hyperspace again, arriving at a remote world. Nomi sets out to deliver the crystals to Thon, planning to return home afterwards. After wandering in the desert, she and Vima come across a house owned by a mysterious man who she recognizes as a Jedi. Meanwhile, however, their ship has been tracked by the criminals and their Hutt overlord. They break into the ship, then by chance also come across the Jedi's house. The Jedi confronts him in a fight, but is wounded in the chest. Then, the Jedi's beast attacks the thugs, and they flee into the desert. It is then revealed the beast is actually Master Thon, and Nomi and Vima become his apprentices. Though Nomi has entered Thon's tutelage, the Jedi has ignored her for a long while. One day, Vima chases several animals towards a lake, where Nomi has learned dark powers reside, only kept in check by Thon. Vima is attacked by a dragon-like creature, but Nomi has a unique power. She concentrates on an image of the dragon being attacked by another, which quickly comes to fruition. This is the power of battle meditation, though Nomi's Sunrider does not yet know the extent of her powers. As for Thon himself, he hails from the world of Ambria, which lies in a group of mining systems. Its native populations are collectively called Nessis and fly large ships made of insect exoskeletons. Their ships are often attacked by pirates, and many Nessis therefore are forced to pay Baga the Hutt for protection. However, during one run, the pirates destroy Baga's escorts and a mining ship is ransacked. Baga himself then arrives in his dreadnought, the Enforcer 1, and captures the pirate ships and takes them to the planet of Taboon. It is revealed that Os Willem, the other Jedi living with Nomi and Vima, has accompanied Thon for 5 years. However, news has reached Thon of a conflict on the other side of the galaxy, and Willem may soon be sent to aid Master Arca and his Jedi proteges. Thon approves of the mission, and Willem is sent to Onderon to help quell the Freedom Nad uprising. Meanwhile, the pirates are brought to Baga's fortress in the Stennis system. Their captain, Finhead Stonebone, is brought before the Hutt and is commissioned to retrieve the Adagan crystals from Master Thon and to kill him. In the meantime, Nomi and Vima's apprenticeships begin under Thon's tutelage. Nomi is reluctant to pick up a lightsaber again, as it reminds her of her husband's death, and only agrees to be trained as a Jedi if she is not forced to wield one. Thawne takes the two on a tour of his world and shows them an old holocron of Master Nar of the Myr. But Nar warns them the dark side may never be entirely vanquished and foretells a great conflict is approaching, with Nomi herself to play a large role in it. Thawne tells Nomi she must accept her destiny as a Jedi and gives her his lightsaber. Just then, the pirates working for Baga enter the atmosphere. They rush back to Thawne's home, where the pirates have begun bombardments. Nomi refuses to take up a lightsaber still, and hops off Thawne's back with Vima. Thawne urges her to instead use her Jedi powers, and surrenders peacefully to the pirates as Nomi and Vima hide. She begins to meditate, focusing on the desired outcome, and slowly influences the pirates' minds and actions. They begin to fight amongst themselves over the crystals, and Nomi in that moment finally chooses her path as a Jedi. She ignites the lightsaber and fights her way to Thawne, freeing him. The pirates flee, and Nomi notices a surge of power within her, and added strength derived from the Force. Aziz, though having been freed from the control of the dark side, remains beset by civil unrest. Cultists following the deceased Sith Lord Freedon Nad have rebelled against Queen Gallia and the Jedi station on Onderon, including Master Arca and Ulic Qel-Droma. The Jedi Os Willem, student of the great Master Thawne, is recruited to help with the crisis as funeral ceremonies begin for the late Queen Amanda and the remains of Freedon Nad. Arca has ordered the remains of Nad to be taken to a tomb on the nearby moon of Dixun. The Jedi and Gallia meet Willem in the spaceport, but then Royal Loyalists attack with a war machine. A tall, armored warrior wielding a lightsaber strides forward, and Arca is seemingly wounded as the Queen's troops are pummeled. As they fall back, the cultists seize the sarcophagus of Freedon Nad and flee underground. The Jedi are greatly troubled by the strength and power of the darkness they felt, and Gallia then proposes they see her father, who understands the dark side but is currently in prison. They travel to see her father, named King Amen. Amen surprises them all by revealing that the spirit of Freedon Nad has endured. A dark power enters Amen and grants him surprising strength, and Arca is attacked and incapacitated. Cultists appear and attack the Jedi, including the armored warrior, who is called Warb Null. Ulic Qel-Droma fights desperately to save the Queen and his master, who is being carried away by Amen. He manages to cut down Null, but is disoriented and imbalanced in the aftermath. Ulic and Gallia then discover the royal palace was attacked and captured by the Naddis, and decide to retreat to the wilderness. Ulic Qel-Droma then decides the best course of action will be to call for aid from the Jedi Order and the Republic itself. Elsewhere in the galaxy, Master Thawne and Nomi's Sunrider, accompanied by Nomi's daughter Vima, have traveled to the great center of Jedi learning on Ossus. They meet with Master Vodo, who will teach Nomi how to build her own lightsaber. Over the course of a week, Nomi constructs her lightsaber with the crystal of her late husband, the same one he was bringing to Thawne. Then, news reaches Ossus of Master Arca's fall and the Freedon Nad uprising on Onderon. A team of 5 Jedi is selected to travel to the Troubled World, including Nomi, Dace Diath, Shoan Neb Kulu, Kurl Tok, and Kith Kark. Meanwhile, the Senate on Coruscant debates whether to aid the Jedi against the formidable powers of the Sith. Also on the planet are Satal and Alima Keto, the heirs to the Empress Teta system. They have found a hobby of studying ancient magics, and have formed a secret society called the Krath. Now, the Ketos wish to learn more about the dark side and ancient Sith artifacts. Visiting a museum, Satal steals a book containing formulas of some sort, but cannot read the language it's written in. They then hear of the unrest on Onderon and decide to travel there in hopes one of the cultists will help them translate the book. The Ketos travel to Onderon but find it blockaded by the Republic fleet. Satal, however, is determined to make it through the surface. They force their way through the blockade and reach Aziz, which has become a war zone filled with Republic ground troops. Satal and Alima's ship is hit, and they land in the city streets as the Republic and Jedi attack its high walls. Nomi's team arrives to rescue Ulic Qel-Droma and Gallia, who are holding out in a forest citadel. Nomi's powers of battle meditation, however, are being hindered by a mysterious energy field. Dark forces permeate the battle, and Kith Kark is killed. Then, Ulic, Kay, Tot Danita, and Os Willem lead the Beast Riders out of the forest, having been battling the effects of the dark side for some time now. But the arrival of their fellow Jedi re-energizes them, and the battle shifts towards the Jedi's favor. Nomi, however, is still troubled by the mysterious dark spirit she senses. It lashes out at her, causing her to fall. Ulic rushes to her side, and she tells him she saw an emaciated man on a metal device, and learns it was King Amin. Meanwhile, Satal and Alima meet with several cultists and are granted an audience with King Amin. He gives Satal a Sith amulet that allows him to read his book without hindrance. Then, Amin shows them a captive Arca, who he intends to convert to the dark side and raise him up once more as a Dark Jedi. However, in that moment, the Jedi lead a force that attacks Amin's courtyard. Amin walks out to confront them, and sends waves of darkness against Nomi's Sunrider and Ulic Qel-Droma. But Ulic leaps forward, and slices through the metal structure supporting Amin's fragile body. Amin collapses, and Satal and Alima retreat from the battle back into the underground chambers. There, they find the spirit of Freedom Nad, who gives them the book, the amulet, and 2 Sith swords before they escape. Nad then appears before a dying Amin, telling the fallen king the dark side has claimed him once and for all. A freed Master Arca then moves to dispel the spirit, who claims the Jedi have already lost. Peace is restored on Aziz, and the sarcophagus of Freedom Nad is finally moved to Dixun. The defeated Sith Lord Naga Sadow flies across Denari Nova, pursued by Republic ships. He makes a daring maneuver between the twin stars, and incites them both to go supernova, destroying the Republic forces. And elsewhere, on Dantooine, a young Jedi named Exar Kun learns of the Sith and Sadow's tale, including the saga of Freedom Nad. Exar Kun is a powerful student of the Jedi Master Vodo, and is greatly interested in learning more about the Sith from the holocron he is studying from. However, Vodo has other plans for his training, and urges his apprentice to practice caution and humility before studying the Sith further. Meanwhile, Lord Keto of the Empress Teta system travels to a remote outpost. The system has become a key source of raw carbonite, and is controlled by the rulers of its 7 worlds in conjunction with galactic businesses marketing its carbonite. Lord Keto is then visited by Alima and Satal Keto, members of the secret society Krath, along with their tutor Chorus. Alima and Satal have dabbled in Sith alchemy and magic, their abilities recently enhanced by the acquisition of a Sith book and artifacts of Freedom Nad. Alima sweeps aside Keto's guards with several Sith illusions, sending them into shock. The cousins dip Lord Keto into a vat of molten carbonite, effectively freezing him. Satal and Alima thus come to power in the system via a dark side-fueled coup. Satal bombards 3 cities on Kirik who remain loyal to Lord Keto, and ruthlessly crushes insurrections challenging his rule. Alima proposes torturing and publicly humiliating their political opponents, and mercilessly incinerates Chorus with Sith magic. On Onderon, the remaining Jedi stationed there learn to ride the native war beasts. Master Arca summons them all, including Ulic Qel-Droma and Nomi's Sunrider, to inform them of the uprising in the Teta system. Arca sends all of them except for Nomi, Kay, Tot, and Ulic to Ossus to inform the Jedi of the developments on Onderon. Nomi will begin to learn how to master her powers of battle meditation, while Kay and Ulic investigate King Amin's Sith artifacts. The spirit of Freedom Nad appears before them, telling them the Sith will rise again, and that Ulic and another will be among the Great Ones. Meanwhile, Exar Kun's training continues, and the young Jedi shows his unmatched prowess in lightsaber combat. Then, Vodo brings forth another challenger named Silvar for a practice duel. Kun insults her alien, non-human nature, and she lashes out and scratches his face. He falls to rage and nearly lands a killing blow on her, but is stopped by Vodo. Exar Kun's strength is unquestioned, but Vodo senses a place of darkness within his heart. Exar Kun then travels to Onderon and meets with Ulic Qel-Droma and Tat Donida. He claims he is a Jedi archaeologist and wishes to investigate Freedon Nad and the Sith. However, the Jedi and Master Arca inform him they cannot assist his search, and that the artifacts must instead be shipped to Ossus. Arca perceives a growing darkness in Exar Kun, and tells him he is not welcome in Onderon, and he flies away towards Aziz. In the Empress Teta system, the Krath forces move towards Koros Major, the last remaining planet of opposition. Vicious hand-to-hand combat breaks out on the surface, but the Krath have the advantage with Alima's Sith sorcery. Then, the Republic fleet arrives, with Ulic Qel-Droma and Nomi Sunrider. Their order for the Krath to cease fire is ignored, and Alima unleashes several more illusions. But Nomi, with her powers of battle meditation, is able to offset their effects. Elsewhere, Exar Kun wanders the streets of Aziz and comes across two Nadis. They guide him to the tomb of Freedon Nad on the moon of Dixun, where he senses a dark, foreboding evil. Nonetheless, he enters the tomb, and the spirit of Freedon Nad gives him two scrolls written by his master, and instructs him to travel to the last home of the Sith. Exar Kun leaves the tomb and kills his guides, excited about the power he felt, but apprehensive at the ease of which the darkness grabbed him. He leaves Dixun, and sets a course for the ancient world of Korriban. Meanwhile, the Republic fleet closes in on the Krath command station, pushing through Alima's illusions. Nomi reaches into Alima's mind and fully breaks her spell, but Satal's ships fall upon the fleet in dozens of kamikaze missions. Ulic is wounded by debris, and the Republic is forced to retreat. Thousands of Jedi are summoned to Deniba to debate the next course of action as the Krath declare war on the Order itself. Master Odan oversees the proceedings as Ulic and Nomi are brought to the forefront. Ulic Qel-Droma stuns the assembly by suggesting the only way to bring down the Krath is to learn their dark secrets for themselves. In the meantime, Exar Kun has ignored the summons, and is presently being led by the spirit of Freedon Nad deep into an ancient Sith tomb. Nad suddenly brings down the ceiling, crushing Kun and telling him the only way to save himself is to fully embrace the dark side. His conflicted mind reaches out through space and contacts Master Vodo, who begins to meditate to try and save his apprentice. But he is stopped by Freedon Nad's spirit, and Exar Kun, left with no other option, finally gives in to the dark side. His broken body is healed, and his terrible screams echo out across the galaxy and are heard by the Jedi on Deniba. A Tetan pirate ship then launches several pods into the planet's surface, which unleash war droids as the servant droids also turn on the Jedi. Vima Sunrider is nearly abducted, but is saved by Silvar. The Jedi frantically fight off the droids, but Master Arca is killed in front of Ulic Qel-Droma, and he becomes one with the Force. And on Korriban, a reborn Exar Kun asserts he will not let the dark side control him. Freedon Nad suggests otherwise, and then tells him the story of the ancient Lord Naga Sadow, and that he must go to Yavin 4. However, Exar Kun must be further tested, and Freedon Nad takes his lightsaber as a guardian beast attacks him. Exar Kun gives in to anger and rage, and destroys the creature. The tomb resonates with a spectral voice, telling Freedon Nad that ancient Sith Lords deem Exar Kun ready. Kun still believes he will not be seduced by the dark side, thinking he can still control it as a tool. Back on Deniba, it is discovered the service droids that attacked the Jedi were manufactured in the Tetan system, presumably by the Krath. A grieving Ulic Qel-Droma becomes determined to destroy the Krath, and to learn their dark secrets. Nomi Sunrider passionately implores him to not underestimate the power of the dark side, but his course is set. Against the wisdom and warnings of the Masters, Ulic sets out to infiltrate the Krath. Kay tries to join him, but is rebuffed. Ulic plans to land in Sinagar, and kisses Nomi goodbye before he leaves. Exar Kun begins to follow the trail of Naga Sadow, and reaches Yavin 4. There, Sadow's ancient Masashi warriors continue to guard the temples constructed by their ancestors centuries ago. They are a product of Sadow's alchemy, ancient offspring of the Sith race. His ship is shot down and Exar Kun is attacked and tries to call upon the light side of the Force, but it does not answer him, and he is knocked out and brought to a Masashi priest. He is dragged into the Temple of Fire, where Exar Kun witnesses a ritual that brings forth a massive, monstrous creation of Sith alchemy. On Sinagar, Ulic's arrival is detected by Alima and Satal, who sense his intentions but think he can be of use to their cause. They hold a public execution, and the citizens of Sinagar rise up in revolt. Ulic watches, but then leaps to the defense of the Ketos, for if they die, he will not be able to learn their secrets. He saves Alima, believing the rioters' cause to be already doomed, and is accepted into the ruler's company. Meanwhile, Exar Kun is grabbed by the Sith Beast and falls once more into his rage. He begins to speak the Sith tongue and summons a Sith amulet to him. It amplifies his anger and strength, and he destroys the beast of Naga Sadow. The Masashi, taken by his power, bow in reverence to Exar Kun as the spirit of Freedon Nad appears again, hoping to use Sadow's labs to create another physical form for himself. However, Exar Kun turns on Nad, using the amulet to annihilate him. Before Nad passes, he delivers a final warning to the Ketos on Sinagar to fear Exar Kun and not Ulic Qel-Droma. As for Ulic himself, he is being tortured by the Ketos deep underground, injected by a Sith poison of Satal. Alima still wishes to use Ulic, but Satal is more hesitant. On Yavin 4, the Masashi commanded by Exar Kun begin to construct great temples of dark side energy, while Kun begins to endeavor into mastering Naga Sadow's magic powers. Journeying deep below one of the main temples, he finds an abandoned starship and machines of alchemy. He begins conducting experiments on the Masashi to create super warriors. With the ship he found as well, Exar Kun now plans to leave Yavin 4 and destroy the Ketos. Meanwhile, Nomi Sunrider decides to find Ulic with K. Qel-Droma and Tot Donita. She drops onto the surface of Sinagar and ignites her lightsaber, hoping she will be caught and brought to the Ketos. Ulic has been steadily gaining influence in the craft, and has been given tentative command of its armed forces. Nomi is then brought before him in the Ketos, and Ulic tries to conceal his true feelings for Nomi. But Satal then says she must be executed, and Ulic is forced to agree to conduct it himself the following day. Nomi is distraught and wonders if he has truly abandoned the Jedi Order. However, Ulic still remains set on his mission, and a recording he makes is surveilled by Satal. He gives orders for Nomi to be brought to him and for Ulic to be assassinated. The guards approach Nomi, but she uses battle meditation to make them fight each other and escapes. Tot and Kay arrive on the surface as Ulic fights off the assassins. Ulic attacks Satal, but the poison from earlier is triggered by Satal, changing the chemistry and amplifying anger in Ulic's blood. Satal is killed by Ulic, but as Kay and Tot rush towards him, he lashes out with waves of dark side energy. More guards show up, and Kay, Nomi, and Tot are forced to flee and leave Ulic behind. As they fly away, Nomi senses in her heart that Ulic Qel-Droma is lost to them forever. The Jedi return to Ossus and begin planning another mission for Sinagar, utilizing the new Star Saber ships. They hope to turn Ulic back to the light, but the Masters are skeptical. Meanwhile, Ulic is given Satal's Sith amulet on Sinagar as Exar Kun infiltrates the planet with several Masashi warriors. Then, the Jedi strike team arrives, attacking the Ketos Citadel. K. Qel-Droma flies in with the Beast Rider of Onderon. Nomi confronts Ulic and Alima, urging him to escape with the Jedi. Os Willem notices Exar Kun striding across the battlefield, noting his strength in the Force. Kay then arrives and also tries to talk Ulic down. But Ulic Qel-Droma has fallen to darkness and believes the Jedi and Masters to be cowards. He tells them to leave, then breaks out the Sith amulet as sweat pours down his face. Kay and the Jedi move in to detain Ulic, but they are talked down by Nomi. She says that Ulic must deal with the consequences of his choices and that he must be left on Sinagar. The Jedi then leave, but Exar Kun now arrives and confronts Ulic and Alima. He is recognized as the foe foretold by Freedon Nad, but Kun blasts Alima with a wave of energy and knocks her out. Ulic and Exar Kun begin to duel, each wearing a Sith amulet. Then, the ancient spirits of old appear and interrupt the fight. A Sith Lord decrees the amulets have been joined, and that Exar Kun and Ulic Qel-Droma have been chosen. Exar Kun is anointed as Dark Lord of the Sith, with Ulic Qel-Droma as his apprentice. As Alima awakens, she sees the two men shaking hands, for they are now destined to exact the revenge of the Sith against the Republic. The Empress Teta system remains in chaos following the ascension of Exar Kun and Ulic Qel-Droma to the ranks of the Sith. Now, the fearsome Mandalorian warriors fall upon the beleaguered worlds, led by their leader Mandalore. The attack surprises Qel-Droma, who is still working with Alima Keto but under the servitude of Exar Kun. He hails Mandalore, who responds by challenging Ulic to one-on-one combat on the world of Harkle. Meanwhile, Exar Kun has returned to Ossus, his identity of a Sith a secret to the other Jedi. He approaches several Jedi, including Qel-Droma, claiming to have unearthed ancient secrets of the Order. Kun suggests the current Order has been weakened with indecision and offers to teach these forgotten powers to any who may seek them. Exar Kun reveals he vanquished the dark spirit of Freedon Nad and shows them a supposedly ancient Jedi amulet, though in reality it is the Sith artifact. In the Kuar system, Ulic begins to duel Mandalore. He starts simply armed with a lightsaber, while the Mandalorian is in a full Basilisk war droid. There are high stakes to the contest, for if Ulic wins he will effectively gain control over the armies of the Mandalorians. When the fight starts, Ulic uses the Force to throw Mandalore out of the war droid. Mandalore takes a powerful battle axe and swings at Ulic, who stumbles and falls to the ground. Ulic then takes an axe for himself from a nearby warrior and rushes at Mandalore, throwing him off his high ground position. Mandalore concedes, but Ulic decides to not execute him, saying he has bigger plans in mind. Back on Ossus, Nomi Sunrider continues her tutelage and battle meditation under the guidance of Master Odan-Ur. She learns how the ancient Sith would construct specific meditation chambers, from which they could influence the outcome of an entire battle. Odan-Ur teaches her a specific attack that blinds an opponent to the Force, and reveals the last Sith holocron believed to be in existence is on Ossus. However, this conversation has been eavesdropped on by Exar Kun, who drops out of the shadows soon after Nomi and Bima leave. He seizes the holocron, and the elderly Odan-Ur tries to fight off the Dark Lord of the Sith. Exar Kun, however, easily overpowers him, and Odan-Ur fades away, becoming one with the Force. Several Jedi willing to learn from Exar Kun then arrive, and he tells them of Odan-Ur's death and that the holocron has been entrusted to him. Elsewhere, using more of Alima's illusions, Ulic Qel-Droma conceals a fleet of attack ships and strikes against the Foros shipyards. The combined Teton and Mandalorian force is ruthless, and Exar Kun soon patches in, on his way to Yavin 4. Ulic has gained 2 armies and a fleet of 300 ships, and Kun now plans to begin training his Jedi. However, Ulic decides to now attack Coruscant itself, which Exar Kun believes will jeopardize their plan. Later, Republic ships come across the ruins of the shipyards and discover a recording revealing Ulic's force will supposedly rendezvous for an attack at Incomeptech 9. A contingent of Jedi arrive at Coruscant to discuss the raid, including Master Vodo and Qel-Droma. They learn of Ulic's involvement just as his fleet attacks Coruscant, having drawn most of the defenders away to Incomeptech 9. Exar Kun and the Jedi, including Os Willem, arrive at Yavin 4. Willem becomes apprehensive at the lingering presence of the dark side he senses, and turns around to find their ships surrounded by Massassi warriors. They attack, and the rest of the Jedi enter the fray as well. Exar Kun stops them all, claiming to the Jedi he brought them here to purify the planet. He leads them to a temple and shows them the holocron, revealing at last its Sith origins. The Jedi watch as Kun destroys the holocron, but his plan is revealed as the ancient Sith spirits inside are released, not vanquished. Shards of the holocron pierce the Jedi, and the spirits enter their minds and show them visions of the glory of the Sith. All the Jedi except for one are corrupted, transformed into Sith acolytes. Only Crado, who willingly joined Exar Kun, remains untainted by the dark side. Meanwhile, Ulic Qel-Droma's attack on Coruscant has taken the planet and Jedi by surprise, and they are outmatched by the Tettans and Mandalorians. Ulic drives for the Republic war room as Mandalore leads a team towards the weapons depot, where they capture an ion flow cannon. Nomi, Sunrider, and Master Vodo lead a charge towards the war room as Ulic breaks in and forces the commanders to order all Republic fleets to drop out of hyperspace at the exact same coordinates. At this moment, however, Alima betrays Ulic. She orders Mandalore to withdraw entirely, effectively abandoning Ulic with the Republic and Jedi. Mandalore is told Ulic is dead and that he has been promoted to Warlord. The Jedi then arrive at the command center and confront Ulic, employing Odan Ur's technique of blinding his connection to the Force, imprisoning him in light. Alima takes control of the Tettan and Mandalorian military forces, but Mandalore is apprehensive about her orders on Coruscant and wonders if they should rescue Ulic Qel-Droma. Alima plans now to attack Complex 9, but Mandalore vows to remain loyal in his heart to Ulic, his first lord. As for Ulic himself, he is being taken to the Republic Senate Hall, where he will be put on trial. Kay still feels sympathy for his brother, while Nomi remains stoic, believing he needs to face the consequences for his crimes. Meanwhile, Exar Kun sends his acolytes on their first mission, to assassinate their own Jedi Masters. Crado is sent with Os Willem to kill Master Thon. After they leave, Mandalore lands and asks Kun for assistance in rescuing Ulic. In his trial, Ulic is unapologetic and refuses to repent. Kay appeals to the Senate, but then Exar Kun and Mandalore barge into the proceedings. Kun casts a spell on the audience, rendering them immobile and unable to do anything but watch. The Jedi try to talk Ulic down, but Exar Kun then walks to the center of the hall and proclaims through the Chancellor that the Sith Empire will rise again, destroying the Republic and ushering in a long-lost Golden Age. Master Vodo then walks forward, confronting his former apprentice. They begin to duel, Vodo with his staff and Exar Kun with a new double-bladed lightsaber. The battle is long and fierce, but in the end, Exar Kun kills Vodo, then leaves with Ulic. They return to Yavin 4, where Ulic learns of Alima's betrayal, and begins plotting his revenge, telling her she will have the honor of leading the next attack. Meanwhile, Nomi and Bima, accompanied by the Jedi Silvar, fly to Thon's world. However, they have been followed by Crado and Os Willem. Willem calls forth the dark side creatures in the lake by Thon's house and sets them loose to attack the Jedi. However, the Jedi quickly rally, and Os Willem is knocked down by Thon as Crado is slashed across the face by Silvar, his lover. Crado flees to their ship and escapes, while Os is taken by Thon in hopes that he can be healed. Across the galaxy, Exar Kun's acolytes strike against their masters, killing many great Jedi. Zona Luca cuts down Master Dominus, but is mortally wounded herself. Their bodies are found by the Jedi Kurl Tok, Dace Diath, and Shoaneb Kulu. Crado returns to Exar Kun on Yavin 4, where he is appointed as Alima's commander for the impending attack on Complex 9. They also plan to use an ancient weapon, the ship of Naga Sadow that was used to detonate stars. News of the assassinations, as well as the arrival of Sith forces to Complex 9, rock the Jedi on Ossus. 3 Jedi are sent to aid with the defense of Complex 9, while the rest stay behind to protect Ossus. However, the Jedi are too late and arrive at Complex 9 to find no signs of life. This is a trap of Alima, for she is hiding in Naga Sadow's ship behind the star. She and Crado bait Kurl Tok, Dace Diath, and Shoaneb Kulu in. Then she uses the magic of Naga Sadow to rip out the star's core and hurl it at the Jedi. The three Jedi are vaporized, but the star now begins to collapse. Crado and Alima now know they have been betrayed, for the star sucks in the other 9 in the cluster and ignites in a massive supernova. The two commanders are killed, and now waves of fire and energy race towards Ossus itself. This has all gone according to the plan of Ulic Qel-Droma and Exar Kun, for they know the Jedi must now evacuate Ossus. They plan to then swoop in and raid its archives while they are undefended. The Sith forces converge on Ossus as the planet is evacuated. Mandalore and most of his warriors are sent to capture the city of Aziz on Onderon. As Ulic approaches the surface, Kay senses his presence and takes to the air, beginning to chase his brother across the sky. Exar Kun lands on the ground and storms towards the archives. He finds Master Ood, guardian of ancient lightsabers of old, but the Jedi transforms himself into a tree to protect the artifacts. Exar Kun returns to his ship with a load of priceless treasures, but is then challenged by the Jedi Silvar. She tries to fight her way through the Majestic warriors, but is knocked out as Exar Kun takes off. The fleeing inhabitants of Ossus and the Jedi desperately try to leave the surface, knowing countless tomes of knowledge will be lost to the Inferno. Meanwhile, in the chaos, both Kay and Ulic Qel-Droma crash land in the city. The two brothers begin to duel, with Kay trying to turn Ulic back to the light. But Ulic is the stronger warrior and cuts off Kay's prosthetic arm. Then, blinded by rage, he slashes Kay Qel-Droma across the chest, killing him as Nomi Sunrider and Tat Donita arrive. Ulic quickly comes to his senses and holds Kay's body, tears streaming down his face. Nomi, furious, uses her powers to now completely sunder Ulic from the Force. Elsewhere, the Mandalorians launch from the moon of Dixun and attack Aziz, ruled by Oron Kira and Queen Gallia. They are evenly matched until the Republic arrives, and Mandalore is forced to fall back to Dixun and hide in its jungles. He is attacked by several beasts and is killed. Later, a warrior finds his body, and continuing the tradition of their people, dons his mask and becomes the new Mandalore. Meanwhile, the Jedi, now including a stunned Ulic still carrying Kay and severed from the Force, prepare to fly away from Ossus as Thrawn bids farewell to Ood. The Inferno strikes Ossus, and Ulic tells the Jedi he will lead them to Exar Kun on Yavin 4. Thousands of Jedi fly to Yavin 4 and surround it in orbit. Ulic Qel-Droma hails Exar Kun, who summons the full might of the Majestic and makes preparations to hide and survive the looming battle. He and his warriors gather in the main temple, where Exar Kun conducts a ritual to free his spirit from his mortal body, unleashing it on the galaxy. In space, the Jedi begin to meditate to create a wall of light that will extinguish the darkness of Exar Kun and the Sith. The jungles of Yavin 4 ignite from the energy of Exar Kun's ritual, and wildfires rapidly spread across the planet. The Jedi believe Exar Kun died in the fires and depart to begin rebuilding the galaxy. 2 years pass, and now Ulic Qel-Droma returns to Yavin 4, seeking to rediscover his connection to the Force. It is revealed the spirit of Exar Kun survived in the temple, but his cries to Ulic asking for help cannot be heard, and he is doomed to be trapped there forever. Yavin 4 has recovered after the infernos unleashed by Exar Kun in the Sith War. Ulic Qel-Droma now returns to the planet, but is still disconnected from the Force. As he tours the ruins of the temple, guided by a spacer named Hagen, he sees ghosts everywhere. They include his brother, Kay Qel-Droma, killed by Ulic's own hand. Elsewhere, the Jedi Tat Donita has returned to the Twi'lek world of Ryloth. He tries to defend several Twi'leks from a heat storm, but is overcome and suffers bad burns to his face. Tat then departs for the Great Jedi Convocation, a gathering coordinated by Nomi Sunrider. The convocation takes place on Exus Station, where the Jedi will discuss the future of the Republic a decade after the Sith War with Exar Kun. Master Thrawn arrives and is greeted by Bima Sunrider, now a teenager. Nomi addresses the Jedi, urging for unity and peace during the rebuilding phase. Vima, however, seeks action and heroic deeds rather than words, and the Jedi Silvar still wants justice done to Ulic Qel-Droma for his crimes. Bored with the speech, Vima takes a mining ship out for a joyride, but gets caught in a magnetic loop and is stranded. Her ship starts to be dragged into a sun, and the danger is sensed by Nomi's Sunrider on the surface. However, Vima is rescued by Tat Donita, who is running late to the convocation. She is scolded by Nomi, but retorts by saying she should be training her as a Jedi more often. Elsewhere, Hagen takes Ulic Qel-Droma to the icy world of Ren Var. Ulic is looking for a quiet world to live on to escape the rest of the galaxy, and is satisfied with their most recent visit. Hagen then rushes to Exar Station, hoping to see some of the Jedi convocation. He arrives in time to see an impassioned Silvar rail against Ulic, claiming him to be a war criminal. Vima presses Nomi for more training, but is rebuffed again, as her mother is busy handling the logistics of the convocation. Distraught, Vima decides to set out and find a trainer for herself. Tot takes a troubled Silvar to Ryloth, and learns the Rolyak clan has been attacked by a rival, resulting in many lives lost. Silvar talks to its people and incites them to battle, telling them she will lead them in the fight. Tot, however, takes a more peaceful approach. The two rival clan leaders walk out into the bright lands of Ryloth, where they will both die and the warring clans will be united. Disgusted, Silvar decides to return to her home of Cathar. On Ren Var, a battered Ulic Qel-Droma holds his lightsaber, now a mere tool in his hands. He falls into an icy crevasse and resigns himself to dying. But he survives, still wondering what purpose he has yet in life. Elsewhere, Vima stows away on Hagen's ship as it departs Exar Station. She asks him to take her to Ulic Qel-Droma, and back on the station, Thawne and Nomi quickly notice her disappearance. Vima drops down on the surface of Ren Var, and Hagen tells her he will return in one day. She comes across a desolate, abandoned city and eventually finds Ulic, who initially mistakes her for Nomi. Vima asks to be trained as a Jedi, but Ulic rebuffs her, lost in his guilt and still deprived of the Force. A blizzard then strikes, and they are forced to shelter together. Meanwhile, Tot and Silvar travel to Cathar, Silvar still seeking inner peace in the wake of the war, where she lost both her lover and her Jedi Master. She visits an elder, who tells her she must go on a blood hunt to purge her remaining fury. It is a ritual cleansing of sorts, and she invites Tot to accompany her. Elsewhere, Hagen realizes he is the only person in the galaxy who knows where Vima's Sunrider and Ulic Qel-Droma are. He decides to fly back to Exar Station to alert the Jedi, where Nomi receives a holo from Vima telling her she has begun training with Ulic. On the blood hunt, Silvar strikes against the nest of the Kiltik, slaughtering countless numbers of the insects. Tot is greatly troubled and tells her she has not purged her anger, merely given into it. He leaves her, urging Silvar to remember Ulic and be wary of the path of darkness she walks on. Silvar then isolates herself, resuming her blood hunt but continuing to not feel cleansed. She is found by a scout, who brings news of Vima's Sunrider's disappearance and her involvement with Ulic Qel-Droma. On Ren Var, Vima proves to be a dedicated student, soon learning everything Ulic knows. He teaches her how to build her own lightsaber, and they begin to practice spar. Ulic still feels lost, as if he cannot teach her anymore. However, Vima is able to re-motivate him, and she and Ulic begin to carve a massive sculpture of Master Arca and Andor, Vima's father, in an icy cliff. Meanwhile, Silvar arrives at Exar Station, and Hagen offers to take her to Ren Var. Nomi, on the other hand, begins to wonder if perhaps it is best that Vima's tutelage continue under Ulic, but Silvar's heart is still hardened towards the former Jedi. Soon after they leave, Nomi is overcome with regret for neglecting her daughter, and sets out for Ren Var. She closes in on Ulic and Vima, and finds them both training. Vima refuses to leave as Nomi and Ulic stare at each other in silence. Hagen and Silvar land elsewhere on the planet, and Silvar begins to hunt Ulic. Nomi and Vima tour the ice sculpture, and prepare to leave Ren Var. Ulic at last finds a semblance of inner peace, sensing that one day Vima will become a great Jedi. However, Silvar then appears and attacks him with a flurry of lightsaber strikes. She corners him at the edge of a cliff, watched by Hagen as Nomi and Vima sense the conflict and rush back. Ulic then extinguishes his lightsaber, refusing to continue fighting Silvar. She cannot bring herself to land the killing blow, cursing that Ulic of all people was the one to free her from anger. Suddenly, an excited Hagen fires his blaster and shoots Ulic in the chest, killing him. Vima and Nomi rush towards Ulic's body, and with his dying breaths, he gives Vima his medallion and dubs her a true Jedi. Ulic Qel-Droma then dies, and stuns Nomi by becoming one with the Force, despite never being a Jedi Master. Despite being blinded to the Force, Ulic Qel-Droma, Scourge and Hero of the Order, died with the heart of a Jedi.